The surgery costs $50,000. Without payment, we can't proceed. The words hit Naomi Brooks like a physical blow. She stood at the hospital billing desk at 2 a.m, her hands trembling so badly the scholarship acceptance letter nearly slipped from her fingers. Behind the glass partition of the emergency room, a young man lay unconscious, blood still seeping through, hastily applied bandages, machines beeping frantically around him. He was dying, and she was the only person in the world who could save him. Naomi was 22 years old and beautiful in a way that transcended circumstance. Rich dark skin that glowed even under harsh fluorescent lights. Natural hair pulled back in a practical bun after a 14-hour shift. Eyes that carried exhaustion and hope in equal measure. She wore scrubs from her job as a hospital aide, the third of 3 jobs she worked to keep herself and her mother afloat. The letter in her hands represented 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years of studying until 3 a.m. 4 years of choosing textbooks over food, choosing dreams over rest. It was her acceptance to Jefferson Medical School with a full scholarship, $50,000 deposit, tuition covered, her escape from a life of struggle, her future, her everything, right there in black and white. And now a stranger's life hung in the balance. Naomi had been at the hospital delivering dinner to her mother, Patricia, who worked the night cleaning shift. That's when the ambulance had screamed in. Hit and run victim. No ID, no wallet. Nothing but torn clothes and an expensive watch hidden under his sleeve that the paramedics had missed. The doctors had been blunt. He needs immediate surgery. Internal bleeding. Without it, he won't make it through the hour. Someone must know him, Naomi had said. Someone will come. But no one came. And the minutes ticked by. And the young man's vitals kept dropping. The hospital can't perform surgery without payment guarantee, the clerk had explained, her voice apologetic but firm. We've called every emergency contact number we could find. No one's answering. If someone doesn't pay, we can't proceed. That's when Naomi had looked at the letter in her bag. The deposit confirmation. $50,000. Already transferred, sitting in escrow, waiting for her to start school in 3 months. Non-refundable if withdrawn. The words were highlighted in yellow. Miss, the clerk's voice pulled her back to the present. We need a decision. He doesn't have much time. Naomi looked through the glass at the stranger. She didn't know him, didn't know if he was good or bad, didn't know if he had a family somewhere or if he was alone in the world. He could be anyone, a criminal, an addict, someone who'd made terrible choices and now faced the consequences. But he was human, and he was dying, and she was the only one who could help. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Patricia had raised Naomi alone after her father died, saving someone from a burning building when Naomi was 5. Your daddy had a hero's heart, baby, Patricia always said. He saw someone who needed help, and he didn't think twice. That's what real strength looks like. Naomi had wanted to be a doctor for one reason. To save people when no one else will. This was that moment. This was the test. Not in a classroom or on an exam, but right here, right now, in the cold reality of life and death. She looked at her scholarship letter, her dream, her way out, everything she'd sacrificed for. Then she looked at the dying stranger, someone's son, maybe someone's brother, maybe someone's everything. If stories of impossible choices and beautiful hearts inspire you, subscribe to Love is Kindness. Sometimes one decision changes 2 lives forever. Now watch what happens next. Use my scholarship deposit, Naomi said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Do the surgery. Save him. The clerk's eyes went wide. Miss Brooks, this is your education, your medical school. Are you absolutely sure? Naomi's hands shook as she signed the authorization form. She wasn't sure. She was terrified. This could be the biggest mistake of her life. But she thought about her father running into that fire, about her mother cleaning houses for 20 years so Naomi could have a chance, about every person who'd ever sacrificed something for someone they didn't even know. I'm sure, Naomi whispered. Her tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. Just save him, please. The clerk took the form with trembling hands and rushed it to the surgical team. Within minutes, the stranger was being wheeled into the operating room. Doctors moved with sudden urgency now that payment was secured. Naomi watched through the glass as they disappeared behind double doors, and then she collapsed into a waiting room chair and sobbed. She'd just given up everything. Her future, her dream, her only chance at escaping a life of struggle. For a stranger who might never even know her name. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, still cleaning offices on the 3rd floor. "How's my future doctor doing?" Naomi couldn't answer. How could she explain that she was no longer a future doctor, that she'd just traded medical school for a stranger's life? She looked at the emergency room doors where they'd taken him. He was young, maybe mid-20s, dark hair, strong features, even peaceful in unconsciousness. There'd been something about his face that looked kind, but maybe she was just telling herself that to feel better about what she'd done. The surgery took 4 hours. Naomi sat in that waiting room the entire time, unable to move, unable to think beyond the magnitude of her decision. What had she done? How would she tell her mother? How would she live with herself if he died anyway? Or worse, if he lived and turned out to be someone not worth saving? Finally, a surgeon emerged, pulling off his mask. He's stable. The surgery was successful. He's going to make it. Naomi let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank God. What you did was extraordinary, the surgeon said quietly, sitting beside her. I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I've never seen anyone make a sacrifice like that. I just did what had to be done. Most people wouldn't have. The surgeon stood, preparing to leave. He's lucky you were here. We all are. After he left, Naomi finally allowed herself to feel everything. The fear, the grief, the strange, inexplicable peace underneath it all. She'd saved a life. It had cost her everything, but she'd saved a life. Her mother found her an hour later, still sitting in that waiting room. Patricia took one look at her daughter's face and knew. What did you do, baby? Naomi told her everything. Patricia cried, held her daughter, and whispered words that Naomi would remember forever. You have your father's heart. He'd have done exactly the same thing. But Mama, my scholarship is gone. Patricia pulled back, cupped Naomi's face in her work-worn hands, and, it hurts. It breaks my heart. But you know what? You're already a doctor, where it counts. Not in a degree or a title, but in here. She pressed her hand over Naomi's heart. And nobody can take that away. Would you give up your dream to save a stranger's life? Comment below where you're watching from. 3 days passed like a fog. Naomi went through the motions, woke up, went to work, came home, but everything felt different, heavier. She'd saved a life and lost her future in the same moment, and she didn't know how to reconcile the two. Her mother watched her with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. Saving people is in your blood, baby, Patricia said one evening as they sat together in their small apartment. Your father was a paramedic. Did I ever tell you how he died? Naomi shook her head, though she'd heard pieces over the years. He ran into a burning building to save a woman he'd never met. Patricia's voice was soft, distant. Everyone told him it was too dangerous. The structure was collapsing, but he heard her screaming and he went in anyway. He got her out, but he didn't make it back. She looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. You have his heart, Naomi. The same heart that can't walk past someone who needs help. He'd have done exactly what you did. But now what, Mama? Naomi's voice broke. I have no money for school, no way to reapply for scholarships. I'm back to working 3 jobs with a dream that's gone forever. Patricia pulled her daughter close. I don't have the answers, baby. I wish I did. But I know this. What you did mattered. That young man is alive because of you. That's not nothing, but it cost everything. The next morning, Naomi found herself driving to the hospital. She told herself it was just to check on her mother, but deep down, she knew. She needed to see him, needed to know he'd survived. that her sacrifice had meant something. The nurses recognized her immediately. "He's been asking for you," one of them said. "The woman who paid for his surgery. He wants to meet you." Naomi's heart raced as she approached his room. Through the door, she could see him. Awake now, sitting up in bed. He was handsome, she noticed with a start. Strong features, dark hair, slightly messy, eyes that looked kind even from a distance. She knocked softly. The young man turned, and when he saw her, his face transformed with recognition and something that looked like awe. "You're her. You're the woman who saved me." Naomi stepped inside hesitantly. "The nurses told you. They told me everything." His voice was rough from disuse, but sincere. "You used your scholarship, your medical school fund, for me, a complete stranger." She shrugged, uncomfortable with his intensity. "I just did what anyone should do, but no one else did." He leaned forward, wincing slightly from his injuries. "Just you. Why?" "Because you were dying," Naomi said simply, "and I could help." "What's your name?" "Naomi Brooks." "Elijah." He extended his hand. "Elijah Calloway. And I owe you my life." She shook his hand briefly, then pulled away. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're okay." Elijah studied her for a long moment. "The nurses said you gave up medical school for this. Is that true?" Naomi looked away. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." His eyes filled with something she couldn't quite read. Guilt, gratitude, something deeper. "How can I thank you? How can I possibly repay what you did?" "You can't," Naomi said firmly. "And I don't want your money. I didn't save you for a reward. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because you deserved to live. Because of you." Elijah's voice was thick with emotion. "Because of your choice, I'm alive. That's a debt I'll carry forever." "It's not a debt." Naomi turned to leave, suddenly overwhelmed. "It was a choice, and I'd make it again." "Wait." Elijah's voice stopped her at the door. "Can I see you again? Not to repay you, just to properly thank you. To get to know the person who saw a stranger and chose to save him." Naomi hesitated. Every instinct told her to walk away, to keep the distance between them. But something in his eyes made her pause. Genuine gratitude. No ulterior motives. Just a man who wanted to say thank you. "I work at Rosewood Cafe," she said finally. "Mornings. 7 to noon. I'll be there." 2 days later, Elijah walked into Rosewood Cafe wearing simple jeans and a t-shirt, looking nothing like someone who just survived major surgery. Naomi was behind the counter, taking orders, and when she saw him, something in her chest tightened. "Coffee?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "And a chance to talk. If you have time." Over the next few weeks, Elijah became a regular. Every morning, he'd come in, order coffee, and they'd talk during Naomi's breaks. He never mentioned his background, never wore anything expensive. He seemed ordinary, maybe even struggling like she was. They talked about everything: books, dreams, loss. He told her about feeling trapped in expectations he didn't choose. She told him about her father, about wanting to honor his sacrifice by saving others. He listened like every word mattered. She found herself looking forward to his visits. One morning, Elijah asked about her medical school dreams. "What will you do now?" "I don't know," Naomi admitted. "Save money. Try again in a few years. Maybe, if I can." "You'll make it," he said with such certainty it made her want to believe him. "How do you know?" "Because people like you don't give up. You gave up everything for a stranger. That tells me you'll do whatever it takes to reach your dreams." The connection between them grew, slow, careful, real. They never called it what it was, but both felt it. The way he looked at her when she laughed. The way she found excuses to talk to him longer. The way their hands almost touched when he passed her his coffee cup. Neither admitted it, but both knew they were falling in love. 6 weeks after the accident, everything changed. Naomi was working the morning shift at Rosewood Cafe when a man in an expensive tailored suit walked in. He scanned the room with sharp, assessing eyes until he spotted Elijah sitting in his usual corner booth. "Mr. Calloway," the man said loudly, his voice cutting through the cafe's gentle morning hum. "Your father is looking for you. The board meeting starts in an hour. You can't keep avoiding your responsibilities." Naomi's hands froze on the coffee pot she was holding. Calloway. The name echoed in her mind like a gunshot. Calloway. As in Calloway Industries. As in the tech empire worth $2 billion. As in the family whose name was on buildings and hospitals and scholarships across the entire city. She turned slowly to look at Elijah. His face had gone pale. He stood up, but his eyes were on Naomi, pleading. "I'll be there," Elijah told the man quietly. "Just give me a minute." The man in the suit looked between them, raised an eyebrow, then left. The cafe fell silent. Everyone had heard. Everyone now knew. Naomi's voice came out as a whisper. "Calloway? Naomi, I can explain. You've been lying to me this whole time?" Her voice rose, hurt and betrayal flooding through every word. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of coming here, pretending to be ordinary, pretending to be like me. I wasn't pretending. Elijah stepped toward her, but she backed away. "I wasn't lying about who I am. I was just being myself for the first time in my life." "Yourself?" Naomi felt tears burning her eyes. "You're a billionaire, an heir to an empire, and you let me think what? That you were struggling too? That we were the same? With you, I wasn't an heir." Elijah's voice cracked. "I was just Elijah. Just a guy who liked talking to you, who looked forward to seeing you every morning, who fell in love with the woman who saved his life without asking for anything in return." "Don't." Naomi held up her hand, unable to process what he just said. "I gave up my future for you, my medical school, my only chance. And you were just playing pretend? Living out some fantasy where you got to be normal for a few weeks? I never asked you to save me." Elijah's eyes filled with tears. "But you did, and that changed everything. Do you know how many people in my life would have stepped over me dying on that street to make a business deal? Do you know how many people only see my last name and my bank account? Then you should have told me. Why? So you could treat me like everyone else does? So you could see the money instead of the man?" Elijah's voice was raw with emotion. "You gave up medical school for a stranger, Naomi. Not for a billionaire. Not for a reward. For a human being you thought deserved to live. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary." Naomi wiped angry tears from her face. "What do you want from me, Elijah? Gratitude? Absolution? What? A chance." His voice broke. "To show you that who I am, where I come from, none of that changes what we have, what I feel. I can't do this." Naomi turned away. "I need you to leave." She didn't watch him go. She couldn't. But she heard his footsteps, heard the cafe door close, and felt the weight of everything she'd just lost crash down on her again. The next morning, Naomi received a letter. Thick, official, from Jefferson Medical School. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a scholarship reinstatement notice. Full tuition covered. 4-year stipend for living expenses. Housing. Books. Everything. Donated anonymously by someone whose life you saved. Naomi knew immediately. She drove straight to Calloway Industries headquarters, walked past security with the letter in her hand, and demanded to see Elijah. When she found him in his executive office, surrounded by glass and steel and the trappings of wealth, she threw the letter on his desk. "I don't want your charity. It's not charity." Elijah stood up slowly. "It's a debt. You gave your dream for my life. I'm giving your dream back. You can't just buy." "I'm not buying anything." Elijah's voice was firm. "You made a sacrifice that no one should have to make. I'm just making sure that sacrifice wasn't for nothing." Naomi stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "This doesn't change anything." "I know." He walked around the desk, stopped a few feet away from her. "But there's something else I want to give you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple silver bracelet, delicate, worn with time, beautiful in its simplicity. "This was my mother's," Elijah said softly. "She died when I was 10. Before she died, she told me something I never forgot. She said real wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in the lives you touch, the people you help, the love you give without expecting anything back." He held the bracelet out to her. "You touched my life, Naomi. You saved it. And then you made me want to deserve it. Made me want to be someone worthy of the sacrifice you made." Naomi couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Our worlds are so different," she whispered. They were. Elijah agreed. "Until you pulled me into yours, until you showed me what real strength looks like, what real compassion looks like." He took a step closer. "I don't care about the money or the company. I care about becoming someone worthy of what you did. You sacrificed your future for a stranger. Let me spend my future proving that strangers can become something more." He took her hand gently, placed the bracelet in her palm. "Let me prove that love isn't about what you have. It's about what you're willing to give." Naomi looked at the bracelet, then at Elijah, then at the impossible choice in front of her. Her walls were crumbling, her heart was breaking open. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." She let him pull her close. Let herself believe, just for a moment, that this impossible thing could be real. If love stories that prove worth transcends wealth move you, subscribe to Love is Kindness. Sometimes the person we save ends up saving us right back. 1 year later, Naomi walked across the stage at her medical school graduation. In the audience, Elijah cheered louder than anyone, pride written all over his face. After the ceremony, as her mother hugged her and cried happy tears, Elijah pulled Naomi aside. He got down on one knee right there in the middle of the crowd, holding a simple ring. "You saved my life," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Let me spend the rest of mine saving yours. Every single day, in every small way, let me be worthy of what you did." Through tears, Naomi said yes. 3 years later, they stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Brooks Calloway Medical Foundation, a foundation that funded full scholarships for students who couldn't afford medical school. That helped families facing impossible medical bills. That made sure no one had to choose between their dreams and saving a life. Naomi wore her white doctor's coat. Elijah stood beside her, his hand in hers. And on the dedication plaque in the lobby were the words, "For those who save strangers, because sometimes strangers become family." She gave up everything to save a stranger. He spent his lifetime proving that strangers can become soulmates. Sometimes, the biggest sacrifice leads to the greatest love. Because true wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you give away. Comment below where you're watching from. Rate this love story from 0 to 10 inches the comments, and tell us, would you sacrifice your dream to save a stranger's life? This is Love is Kindness, reminding you that the greatest love stories begin with the greatest sacrifices, and sometimes, losing everything is how you find what matters most.